I apologize. As soon as I get my live up, we're going to talk about those two things. And one of those things will help a lot of you, because some of you are doing it right now. Right at this very moment, you're making this particular mistake. Let's make sure that we have muse, sound. Yep, we have sound, we have everything. Some of you are making this particular mistake right now. And so I want to talk to you about it. Have my trusted water. I want to break this down to you. One of the challenges we have when it comes to church and everything that pertains to church is our ability to decipher what we believe that God is saying to us. And a lot of people, a lot of folks that I talk to, hold on for just a second, guys. A lot of people that I talk to, that's their biggest thing. How do I hear from God? How do I know I hear from God? How do I, okay. How do I know I hear from God? How do I know I can or I should hear from God? Let's get this thing together. I'm sorry, guys. How about that? And how about that? Yeah. How do I know I'm hearing from God? How do I hear from God? So I went through a lot of situations when it came to that. I've been in this thing for years is an understatement. Years is years is an understatement. And in the process of me going through it, I found myself kind of messed up. Because, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of scriptures today. I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of scriptures. But I want to go ahead and share this thing. So a lot of stuff I went through because I believe in leadership. Now, my sister is on here probably today. I really believe in leadership. I believe in leadership at a level that most people probably don't understand. So I believe that you should follow leadership. Now, one of the things I need you guys to understand, I need you to pay real close attention to this. Understanding, is that better? Understanding leadership is kind of an interesting thing because we want to go down the right path and we want to do the right thing. The challenge that we run into is in that process of trying to do the right thing and in the process of trying to make sure we're where we're supposed to be, we find ourselves attempting to be kind of balanced, make sure nothing happens, make sure we don't ruffle any feathers and all these other things. And so that was one of the things I was having a challenge with because our father taught us how to be business people before it was popular to teach your kids to be business people. He taught us how to learn how to think for ourselves before that was a popular thing. So the conflict was you go to church, you go to school, you go to anything, and there's a leader, there's a teacher, there's a principal, there's a leader in position. And the person that's in position, that person that's in position is not the person in position that you think they are. Now, and follow me. A leader is supposed to, let me do this. Okay, a leader is supposed to put you in position that you are. Okay, a leader is supposed to put you in position that you're able to do something in a particular A leader is supposed to put you in a position where you are able to move from one position to another position. I want you to see something I'm going to share with you in Romans the 13th chapter. And when I learned about leadership, I understood that leadership is not leadership. Leadership is not dictatorship. Leadership is leadership, meaning that person is supposed to lead. They should be an example of what I gain when I finish whatever I finish. So my math teacher should be a master in math. My English teacher should be a master in English. My pastor should have obviously studied a path of a spiritual nature and not of a biblical nature. He should start with a biblical nature, but he should be chasing me spiritually. Why? Because spiritually is what we're looking for. We're looking for spirit. So we're looking for spirit. In the book of Romans, in the 4th chapter, and it says this. Well, let's look at the 3rd chapter. It says, "For rulers are not a terror to good works." Rulers are not a terror to good works. Now, here's what we have. Here's what we have. And I'm gonna teach you some of the mistakes that I made. I made some big mistakes in church. And if I hadn't made these mistakes, I probably would be a whole lot further along. Well, I would have got further along earlier. The Bible, the principle that you understand is, for the ruler is not a terror to the good, but an evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is a minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is a minister of God, and revengeth and executeth wrath, and to do evil. Now, a couple things that I made a mistake. The number one said, if you do good, there should be no fear. However, we've been taught to be fearful of that particular person or that particular type of leadership. We've been taught to be afraid of that. So don't step on the pulpit. Don't do this. Do communion. Don't do this. All these things will teach us to maintain a level of fear that we call a level of respect. Why? Because the Bible says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So what we've done is we've kind of interchanged the leader with God. And that's okay. The challenge becomes we should be inducted into that place of godly positioning as well. That should be your leadership. That should be your guidance. That should be the position you stay in. You should be in the position where you're teaching me how to walk in what you walk in. You follow me? You should not teach me to reflect who you are. You should teach me how to walk in what you walk in. If a person that is in a position of authority and that person of authority is not leading you, then that person is not a person that is supposed to be followed. Okay? Follow me again. A leader should be followed. A dictator follows commands, which means a dictator, if you're in the army, anybody that's above a foot soldier is a commander. He commands you to do something. He doesn't do it. He commands you to do it, which means you're the subordinate. So everything that should happen in a spiritual environment should be done by a leader. It's leadership. And he has the ability to control the movement. Why? Because he has to guide you into the right place. Now, here's the first mistake I made. Giving respect to those that didn't deserve it. First mistake I made in church. Giving respects to those that didn't make it. And a lot of you probably made the same mistake. And how that mistake is made is because of this. What I wanted to do is make sure that I was staying within the realms or within the borders of what I was taught. So whoever they told me that person was, I believe that person. That's who we're supposed to be. That's how you're supposed to be. Love believes all things. So when they told me that this person was highly anointed or gifted or called or all that kind of stuff, I respected their calling over respecting my calling, or their gift over my gift. Now, what do I mean by that? If you are a pastor and there is a pastor in the audience, let's just say in the audience, and that pastor is not a part of your organization, you send that pastor through these rituals and these things that will cause that pastor to say, okay, now you're part of our pastorship. And that's okay. Again, that's okay. The challenge that happens is if you don't respect who they are in the spirit and try to get them to operate in what you believe in the natural, you'll never give that person the opportunity to be what God called them. You'll only give them the opportunity to be what you want them to be. And a lot of leaders are insecure like that. And I've run into a lot of them. As a matter of fact, The leaders that have been insecure, you can always tell they're insecure because they're very covetous about their position. They're very covetous about what they say and how they say it and who they say it to. They're very covetous about that. And so what you have to realize is today I may be in one position and tomorrow I may be in another position. So you notice that when you try to move toward them, they're touchy feely. Don't touch me. Don't move in my direction. Don't touch not. If you hear the word "touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm," you have to understand that person right there is trying to protect themselves against facing themselves. Let me help you out. If you go into a restaurant and you ask the person how much the food is, and they go, "Well, if you have to ask, it's too expensive for you." If you go to a car dealership and they say, "How much is this car?" If you have to ask, it's too expensive for you. That used to be a line. If I've got to remind you that God's going to get you if you touch me, God's not going to get you if you touch me. If I've got to remind you that means I don't believe in what I already know. I don't believe that God's going to really get you. So I got to remind you because that's my way of just basically telling you to leave me alone. I don't have to tell you that God, touch not God's anointed, touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. That's number one. Number two, I'm his prophet and I'm his anointed as well. So what that does is that stops people from understanding that I can say something to you that I understand by the Spirit and I don't get in trouble. There are churches right now where pastors have slept with women in the church and got them pregnant and all those kind of things. And then they get up and call us that I want to forgive or touch now. And there were people within the church that need to be able to sit down and say, "Listen, that's wrong. Stop it." But we get same thing. We gave reverence to people that did not deserve reverence. They didn't deserve reverence. Why? Because if anybody else did the things that you have seen these people do, you would sit them down. You follow me? But they get away with it. And when they get away with it, and I don't mean get away with it in the fact, "Ooh, they should." But the point is, what you have to do is you've been taught how to be less than them. There is nobody on this planet that you are spiritually less than. Nobody. 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 There is nobody on this planet that you're spiritually less than. Okay? And I want you to understand this very, very carefully. If you don't understand that, you will give authority to people over your life that don't have the power to handle your life. You will give people authority over your life that don't have the power or the ability or the spirituality to handle your life. And so now you are taking, it's kind of like my grandson deciding he's going to train Mike Tyson. He's never been in a battle. He doesn't know what it's like. But what he does is he goes, I'm hearing something in the spirit. Okay, I got you there. But hearing something in the spirit should give you the same opportunity for me to say, I hear something in the spirit about you. But if you talk to somebody that is in a leadership position and they're almost condescending when you begin to say, the Lord showed me something. It's almost condescending. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made when it came to going to church. I was giving respect and honor. Now, not the kind of respect that goes, yes, sir, no, sir. Not that kind of respect. The kind of respect that said, well, I don't want to say nothing to the man of God because I don't want to hurt his feelings or I don't want to get in trouble. And a lot of you are doing that. A lot of you are not sitting there saying, no, that's wrong. And I don't mean yelling in the middle of the church because it's not about being embarrassing. It's not about being loud. It's not about being boisterous. The Bible even says if you have an error or ought, go to him by yourself, then take a witness, then bring him before the church. It's not about being embarrassed. It's about being able to understand that you carry a level of spiritual power that they carry, and you are just as spiritual as they are. Well, maybe I'm not learned enough. Spirituality has nothing to do with your ability to learn. It has to do with your ability to accept. I'm going to teach something now. Spirituality has nothing to do with your ability to know this from cover to cover. If you know the Bible from cover to cover, that does not make you more spiritual than I am. It's even though the Bible, the Bible even says the letter killeth, but the spirit give life. Okay? The Bible also says that you have no need of any man to teach you because the Spirit will teach you. Now, here's where the deal becomes. So what happens is we are now placing criteria for you to be spiritual according to my design. I'm the same way. I will give you criteria to help you, but you're placing criteria on according to my design. You follow me? If my design does not line up with your spirit, you have the right to say, no, I'm not going to do it. Not in their position. You don't have to get loud and get in the pulpit. I'm not doing that, because that becomes your flesh. But if they say, if the organization says, we're going to fast the first week of first 30 days of January, or first 30 days of the year, and if that is not resonating in your spirit, then you don't have to do it. But here's the thing. If the church says we're going to fast the first 30 days, what you begin to believe is if you don't fast the first 30 days, you're in guilt. You walk in guilt. That is not the case. God is not holding your sins against you. He's not going, okay, you're a bad person if you don't do what the people say. What he's saying to you is follow your spirit. And you have to learn how to follow your spirit, because if you don't learn how to follow your spirit, you begin to follow people that are hirelings. You begin to follow people that are hirelings. First mistake I made. Second mistake I made. I believed that financially, my money giving was a form of worship. Oh, I just lost a whole lot of people there. I believed that giving finances was a form of worship. It is a form of obedience. It is not a form of worship. So if it's not a form of worship, for me to hold you accountable for tithes and offerings is to hold you accountable for a principle that not only was an Old Testament principle, but a principle that is altered by you making me do it. Hear me now. Hear me. The reason that God doesn't crack you over the head when you don't do what he wants you to do is because, and I'll teach you about that in a minute, is because your free will he gives you to love him. If you are married and you feel like you had to love your wife, then you don't love your wife. You're simply making yourself do what doesn't cause commotion in your relationship. That's it. God does not he gives you free will. God is not making you do anything. Why? Because what he wants to know is, do you care enough to release something to me and sacrifice that thing for yourself? It is not a form of worship. It is a form of obedience. That is why Corinthians says, as a man purpose in his heart, so let him give. I'm under the impression that it's a form of worship. I'm also under the impression, now y'all really gonna love this one, I was under the impression financially that it was a part of being a Christian. It was a part of being a Christian. It was a part of, well, it is a part of being a Christian, but it was a part of my spirituality. But my spirituality had absolutely, positively nothing to do with me giving money. Absolutely. So what happens is, now here's what happens. So what happens is we begin to look for things and try to make those things look spiritual. That's why people say the reason your life is the way it is because you haven't paid your tithes. That's not true. The reason your life is because everything you do is set on a cycle and is set on a law. That's it. It's laws and cycles. So if you follow the cycle, it's going to get you to where you want to be. For example, a bicycle wheel goes round and round and round. So if you start at this place and go around, it's going to come back to the place that you want to go. But laws are different. The key with law is, what law are you utilizing to get you to what position you want to be? Y'all got that? What law are you, for example, Galatians says this, Galatians 6 and 7, and I can read it. Galatians 6 and 7 says this. Right here. Matter of fact, I just found it. Roll right to it. Galatians 6 and 7. All right, look at that. Look at that. Galatians 6. I've been highlighted in yellow right there. You see that? Galatians 6 and 7. Right there. Highlighted in yellow. All right. Galatians 6 and 7 says this. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he reap. Now, of all the passages that talk about sowing and reaping or giving and receiving, That one was really that one stood out to me. It says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. And I'm thinking mocking, and we've been taught this. Mocking means because I don't do it. You can't trick God in this one. This is what he's saying. So this is a spiritual principle that cannot be avoided. This is a spiritual principle that cannot be avoided. It cannot be slipped by. It cannot be sneaked by. My mother used to say, I forgot she used to say it, but other than counsel. My mother used to say, but anyway, I can't think of it. It was some way she would say reaping and sowing. So God is not mocked. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall you reap. So now, and when I sow it, I had to realize that no matter what I sow, hear me, people, I'm about to teach you something that's going to change your life. And it is so deep that it happens in systems that you don't know anything about. When he said God is not mocked, mock means he's not tricked and he doesn't miss it. So whatever you release, your spirit acknowledges that it's been released. If you loan somebody $1,000, let's just say, well, let's be a little bit more here. You loan somebody $100. You loan them $100. If you don't get that $100 back, according to spiritual principle and spiritual law, something has to come back to you according to that money. Period. God said, it does not matter. Whatever a man soweth, that's what he's going to reap. Okay? Whatever a man soweth, that's what he's going to reap. Now, here's why I go back to Corinthians that you can sow sparingly, you can sow bountifully. It gets even better than that. There are people that took my course, the spiritual course, and guys, I got tomorrow's the last day. I want to get some stuff out to you for those that took the mechanics of spiritual power. It's so deep that did you know the people that come and do courses, like the people that did the course, everybody that took the course was given by volunteer. The course was given. Do you know that those courses you can write off on your taxes because God is not mocked? Do you know that what you give is assigned to God is a spiritual act? And whatever you release, when you go and give money you go and give money to the grocery store and you sow money into you reap groceries. That is a principle. That is a law. That is a rule. And so what you have to understand is it is a rule that you can control. I know y'all gonna think I'm crazy. See, the prosperity message messed everybody up because we thought we were trying to get a lot of money. So we thought we give money. But you have to understand there's a difference in riches and wealth. I'll get to that some other time. So that means that if you take that same $100 that you loan your auntie or you loan your cousin and say, listen, keep it. It's not I don't even need it anymore. You've had it for 6 years. You ain't paid me back. Keep it. Now, that means one of two things. That means at that moment that's been sown. Because sowing has nothing to do with the mind. Sowing has nothing to do with the mind. Whew. So I think it's 2 Corinthians 9th chapter. Let me talk about it. Sowing has nothing to do with the mind. It's 2 Corinthians 9th chapter. I'm telling you today, I'm hot. I'm hot, y'all. Every time I turn the Bible, it go right to the page. Now, therefore, 2 Corinthians 9th chapter 6th verse. But I say unto you, he which soweth sparingly shall also reap sparingly. He which soweth bountifully shall reap bountifully. Verse 7. Every man according to as he purposed in his heart. Not grudgingly, not of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. Now, there are a lot of italicized words. I'm just hot today, boy. A lot of italicized words there. That was the second thing I made a mistake. I thought money was an essential part of being a Christian. It's not. It's not. Giving is, money is not. Why? Because he said God is not mocked. That means whatever you sow, that's what you're going to reap. I think it's raining. Whatever you sow, that's what's going to reap. Now, let me really mess your world up. So, you tell your auntie, keep the $100. Because giving is not a part of the mindset, all we have to do is master your mind and we got your control in how you give. It's according to the Spirit. But if giving is according to the Spirit, because here's what I didn't learn. If I learned that giving was according to the Spirit, I learned that what could happen spiritually is what I needed from God or what I needed released in the Spirit can be assigned by what I decide to release on this earth. Now, the Bible says something very interesting. What's released on what you bind on earth is bound in heaven. What you release on earth is released in heaven. So what you have to realize is you can assign a release from heaven by releasing something here. I never knew that. Now, here's the key. Because it's not a mind thing, I have to stay in points of meditation. Why? Because what is happening spiritually, you are around releasing things every single solitary day. Everybody that is watching this, and there's 1,000 here, and I don't know how many on this. Everybody's watching this. You've just given time to God to learn more about God. So now you've sown. God's not mocked. This isn't something you just so, well, God don't pay attention to this. In the Spirit, nothing gets by. Which is my third thing. In the Spirit, nothing gets by. So you've spent time here. Can I help you out? Can I help you out? Can I go a little bit deeper? You've spent time here, which means that you're able to go in the Spirit and say, I've done this. Now release to me what belongs to me. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. John, I told you I'm hot today, y'all. I'm hot. I'm hot. I'm super preacher today. Or super teacher. John the 17th chapter said this. John 17:4 said, I have glorified thee on earth. I have finished the work which thou hast given me to do. Now, in this passage, this is in writing. This is supposedly the Lord praying or the Lord praying. He said, I have finished the work that you've given me. Basically, I've done what you asked me to do. I've sown, I've released, I've trusted. I've watched this tall dude with the gray shirt on and the glasses. I've done that. See, this is something we don't learn in spiritual principles. We don't learn that when you are a part of the law, you can encourage the law to be taking place. I'll explain. Verse 5 says, and now, O Father, glorify thou me and with thy own self, with the glory which I had before the world was. So he's saying, now, I did what you asked me to do. Now, I expect to be compensated spiritually for what I did. Now, I don't have to press it. I expect it. So that means I now walk around my world waiting for the release that has already come because of the law. See, here's where we make the mistake. This is a book of principles and a book of laws. See, you keep trying to make this a book of just the Spirit of God speaking. But this is the book of principles. This is the encyclopedia for principles and laws. So that means that when I say something, when I do something, that principle goes into place. Where's my bottle? I keep a bottle now. That means that what's in this bottle will stay in this bottle as long as this bottle has a top on it. But as soon as I remove this top, there is not a principle in this world that will stop this water from releasing and going toward me. So what I have to do is figure out where the bottle is and simply get under the bottle. Are you following me? So what you have to find out is, okay, now I have to realize that I've now ignited the principle. Every morning when you get up, you say something nice to your husband. You say something nice to your wife. You do something. You have released the principle that I did not understand this. I did not get this. And when I release the principle, my mental expectation becomes, now I have freedom and liberty, and it's coming back. It's coming back. Now, if you took my class, if you took the class that I did, you took the if you took the power, the mechanics of spiritual power, and you paid for the class, okay? You think that the paying of the class and getting the class was the reaping of what you did. No, baby. You then go, see, this is why I had to know. I didn't know this. I did not know this. Oh my God, I did not know this. I need y'all to catch me. I didn't know this. Portia Dallas. Hey, baby. My sister's on. So, here. Second thing, I did not know this because nobody taught me this. Why? Because you narrowed me down to reaping and sowing according to tithes and offerings, heave offerings. If I learned this, I would start giving so much more. But I didn't learn it, and because I didn't learn it, that's what happened to me. Now check this out. I need y'all to check this out. So I give this bottle. Oh my God. I give this bottle of water. Okay? I go and I give this bottle of water. No. Let's do the class. Okay. The class is $5,000. Okay? And just hear me. So the class is it's not actually $5,000. So relax. Because I start talking about big money. I'll leave all this money. Probably, but whatever. The class is the class is $500. We'll just say that. The class is $500. So you come and say, Uncle Dallas, Brother Dallas, I want to take the class. I said, okay, the class is $500. In your mind, you think about pay. You think about paying. Hear me? I need y'all to hear me. You think about paying. But in the spirit, you are sowing. And what you're sowing into is your understanding or your next level or your education. Okay? You got to hear me. So what we have been taught is if I give a bottle of water, I'm going to get a bottle of water back. Okay? I can put this whole bottle of water into this cup. So if I give a bottle of water, I get a bottle of water back. Why? Because it's here. It's here. It's here. You are thinking here. Because you're now taking a spiritual principle and you're interpreting it in a way that you can understand it. So you say, if I give 10, God will give me 10 back. Or you go to the church and the church said, you give that 10, he'll give you tenfold. See, that's the problem. The problem is you've been trying to decipher spiritual principles by mental obscurity, by your mental capacity to understand them. You've been trying to decipher spiritual principles by your mental capacity to understand them. But here's what you don't understand. Romans says, God is not mocked. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he reap. You thought you were sowing money, and the whole time you were sowing access. You thought you were sowing money. This is what they taught me. You thought you were sowing money when the whole time you were sowing access. So that means whatever you release or whatever you sow does not come back in mental level. It comes back in spiritual level. It does not come back in mental level. It comes back in spiritual level. So now the $500 that you just paid for the class, that $500 doesn't come back into a way you can understand it. It comes above and beyond what you can ask or think. It comes in overflow. It comes in a way that it's a release from God, not a release from you. So that means you gave $500 and now you're going to get $5 million or $5 trillion worth of things that you received because you sold this. So when you released $100 to your auntie, when you released $100 to your mother and say, you know what, I don't want it. You're not going to just get your $100 back. God's going to look at you and say, you've opened up an access in the spirit. So I'm going to release something to you. So you may go and get the car for free. They may give you favor when it comes to getting your job. All these things may release, but see, because they have made you think that money is real and that cash is currency, you don't understand that your currency is not the cash you have in your pocket. The reason I talked about my sister is because my sister may be moving at millionaire status, but she may not have $1 million. But she has points and she uses coupons and all these things to move at this level because it does not cost you to move at this level. So when we were about to do something, my wife was asking and my sister was asking. My wife went and got on points now. So she was getting points. And when she was getting points, she was using those points to get hotel rooms, to get plane tickets, to fly like other people fly for free. Why? Because see, what you have done is you thought that when you released that little $100 you got, that the only thing is the fact that you missed $100 out of your bills or $100 out of your budget, when all the time the Spirit is saying, now you've given me opening to bless you. You've given me access to you. Why? Because you released something that was an idol to you. You released something that was a hindrance to you. And now God has access. So you're never getting it back the same way you got it. I teach a class on relationships for those of you who don't know. In January, I do something called Power Couple, where we come and we teach couples how to build the power, how to build the foundation, and how to go to the next level. And one of the things I teach is that a man is a planter and a woman is an incubator. And I heard Miles Monroe say something one time. He said, "You give a woman a seed, she'll give you back a baby. You give her a meal, she'll give you back you give her groceries, she'll give you back a meal." That is the way God. That's why I say God and woman are so correlated that it's not even funny. And when you get deep into the spirit, you'll understand. So that means that whatever you release, the time, right now, the time you're spending, the hour you're spending with me is opening up an access to God with you. So what happens is, let me see what I can do. What happens is, the moment that, I'm going to do it like this. The moment that, and I know this sounds crazy, the moment that I do something, he assigns something to me. It's like in the spirit, there was a mark. I don't have a mark on you. It's like putting on this watch. Every time they see this watch, people are like, isn't that, yeah. It's a mark on you. It's a mark on you. It's a mark on you. So every time you release your time, your meditation, every time you do that, it releases something and it puts a mark on you. So everything spiritually knows how to be attracted to you. Why don't you have money? Sweetie, you don't have money because you're trying to sow money to get money. The reason you don't have money is because you don't know that where you were trying to get money, he gave you access. But you don't want to be access. I'm not going to take, no, stop getting caught up in that stuff. I'm telling you what I went through. Because I'm sitting here feeling guilty because I can't do what the leader said do. But my life is been amazing. I got free plane tickets. I will get free flights. I got a Mercedes-Benz. I got all of this stuff because when I figured out that he wasn't reducing my ability to grow to the amount of money I had in my pocket, I began to understand that I had to listen to the Spirit. I say this all the time, prayer, meditation. I had to listen to the Spirit because what the Spirit will do is tell me what to do so that I can release this. That's what a leader was supposed to do. So number 2, I thought money was a part of being a Christian. It's not. It's not. And so when I learned that money was not a part of being a Christian, what I learned was the source of my growth was when he told me to do with my life what he wanted me to do with my life. Does that make sense? When he told me to do with my life what he wanted me to do with my life. Not with my money, not with my life. So if he said to go and take somebody to dinner, I became a blessing to the person that I took to dinner, and I became access to them. They became access to me. So this person is praying, God, I want to go to dinner. He sends me to take him to dinner. So he gives me what I need to take him to dinner, gives him dinner. Now he now has access. I have access. The person, you follow me, it becomes a cycle. But see, tithing is a horse of a different color. We're not going down that road. We're not going down that road. So that was the second thing I learned. Third thing, final thing. The final thing. Paul is talking and he told Timothy, he said, don't forget the gifts that you receive from the laying on of hands. There's something I need you to understand. Callings. Not gift. Callings come directly from God. Callings do not come from man. I'm sorry. Callings do not come from man. Your pastor can't look at you and say, I see you being a pastor. No, Ocean Glass, this is not a Christian stream. This is just what I talk about on Monday. On Wednesday, I talk about something totally different. That is not something. Your calling is not because a man says that you're calling. Your pastor can't come up, I see you as a pastor. I see you as a leader. That has to be something that resonates in your spirit because it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing. So when you understand the difference in spiritual things, and I got a thing that says spirituality versus Christianity. When you understand that, see, we keep thinking man dictates that. So you go to a church, the pastor sits up on the pulpit, he sits up higher than you, he looks down at you and tells you things to do, crinkles up his face when you don't do it the way he thinks you should do it, or she thinks the way you should do it, and you didn't feel guilty. You come in there and you look like you're a bunch of kids waiting for your dad or your mom to get on your nerves. To spank you because you get on their nerves. Instead of being to come in and go, I found a place to be free in the spirit. Well, what do we don't? We don't want freedom in the spirit, because freedom in the spirit means that there's something that you can do that I can't control. But freedom in the spirit. But see, we are taking freedom in the spirit as freedom that's freedom in the natural. Freedom in the spirit does not mean you can run up on the pulpit and slap something out. That's not freedom. Freedom in the spirit means that when the spirit gives you unction or gives you instructions, you can follow that instruction. Period. Period. Freedom in the spirit means liberty. Freedom in the spirit means that you don't have to follow every path of the dictation of the spirit. You follow every path of the flow of the spirit. You follow me? Because what happens to a lot of us is we get caught up in things that cause us to lean in directions that are contrary to the spirit. This is where relationships have crazy times. So what I did not realize is did not realize that what had to take place was I had a calling, but a gift could be released to me. And it was crazy when I understood this. When I finally understood this, because I would go to churches and pastors, listen, guys, I've been doing this for about 35 years. I have traveled all over. I have preached. I have taught. Everything you saw on television, I was the Bible toting, tongue talking, jumping the pews, preaching, because I knew how to get preaching out. I knew how to bring something to pass. I knew how to change the way you saw things together. God is moving in your direction, and if you don't understand how he does it, he can change the movement of your life. He can put you in a position where you've never been before. He can show you all that. I know how to do all this stuff. Until I realized that I don't think Jesus was sitting there going, how did he do it? Why did he do it? And he wasn't loud. I get intense because I'm intense. But I realized that my calling, my gift and my calling were two different things. My gift could be unearthed. It could be brought forward. But my calling had to come directly from God. I'm on a flight going from DC. From Atlanta to California. I'm on a flight going from Atlanta to California. Young lady sits next to me, and while she sits next to me, I'm sitting there reading my Bible. Now, I don't read my Bible all the time. Sometimes I listen to music. But this time, apparently, according to the Spirit of God, I needed to be reading my Bible. So I'm reading my Bible. While I read my Bible, the lady looks over and she says, what are you doing? I said, I'm reading my Bible. She said, what are you reading? I tell her what I'm reading. While I'm there, I hear the Spirit of God says, touch her hand. Now, I don't know this lady. I've never met this lady before in all the days of my life. So I didn't just reach and touch her hand. I said, do you mind if I agree with you? And she said, no. And she put her hand down. I put my hand on top of her hand. As I put my hand on top of her hand, ladies and gentlemen, she began to cry. She began to weep. And she said, what was that? I said, what was what? She said, I felt something go in my body. She said, I just felt this love. And she just went through this whole thing. Now, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel nothing. I just did what he told me to do. She said, can I keep up with you? Can we communicate? I said, yeah, we can communicate. So I gave her my card at the time. And I gave her the card. Guys, 3 days later, she calls me back. 3 days later, she calls me back. When she calls me back 3 days later, she tells me, she said, I have been prophesying to everybody I see. My mama, my auntie, my sister, my cousin. She said, I have just been prophesying. I have been just... Now, I didn't give her the gift. I helped her to release the gift. Some of the gifts that are inside of you have to be released because your spirit has to have something to just open up your eyes or open up the doors or open up your mind. Why? Because if you don't, you'll get stuck in how tradition says do it and how people say do it, and that's not the way God wants it. That's not the way the Spirit releases it. So guess what? Your gift is there. With your gift comes certain things. For example, with this cup came a straw. With this bottle came a label. With your gift, in this bottle came water. Within your gift, there's something inside of you. And if you don't understand it, it becomes foreign to you and you have to learn how to release it. It's okay. He may show you how to release it. But some things he may use a person. God is not typecast or foothold on any way to do it. He does it the way he wants it done. So the third thing was, I thought that man dictated how I moved in the spirit. I thought the man dictated that. I thought the man dictated how I moved in the spirit. And so what I did is I waited for man to tell me things. Now, to have someone that you can bounce something off of is a horse of a different color. It's a horse of a different color. But to be able to say, go to a different, I had a number of pastors say this to me. You can't go speak at any other event until you first bring it by me. I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me. Before I was under your organization, he spoke, I went, it was according to his blessing. But no, I felt like they monitored because I felt like leadership understood more of my calling than I understood my own. It never made sense until one day I had an epiphany. And the epiphany was, I was on my way to go to church. I'll never forget this. I was dressed to go to church. While I was dressed to go to church, I heard in my heart, in my spirit, and I'll teach you guys that want to know how to really hear from God. In my heart and in my spirit, and I'm teaching you now, if you listen to me very closely, I heard, do not go to church. Now, the way it happens with me, I heard, do not go to church. And I knew it wasn't not go to church, it meant not go to this place. Now, here's the funny thing about that. If I couldn't tell leadership that I wasn't going because I wasn't going. And I couldn't call them because it's Sunday and they don't answer the phone. So when I'm sitting there, I said, okay, what do I need to do, Lord? He says, go to D.C. And I was in Maryland at the time. He said, go to D.C. So I drove to D.C. When I drove to D.C., a friend of mine has a nice sized church out there, 25,000 people, that kind of thing. And so I go to D.C., 5,000 people. I go to D.C. and I sit there. We sit in the pulpit. We talk. He and I talk. We're friends. We have a good time. And after that, I go to his 8 o'clock service. After 8 o'clock service, he said, "You standing?" I said, "No, I'm gonna head back." Because now I'm still trying to get back to church. I still have time to get back to church because it's 8 o'clock. He finishes at 10. I go there. I get there. I'll be there a little late, but I'll be there. But as I get in my car, my cell phone rings, and my brother calls me and he says to me, "Hey, what you doing?" I said, "Nothing. I'm up in D.C." He said, "Oh, good. I want you to come over and preach at. We're doing a service tonight, and the preacher didn't show up. Would you mind coming and being their part and doing this part?" I said, "Yeah, do the part." I go and do the service that night. He said, "Come and spend lunch with me." So I go have lunch with him, and we go and we do the service. Now, here's where the epiphany came. I said to myself, "That's really weird." Because if leadership dictates when and where I go, why would God have me disobey leadership? When I was a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish ways. Some of you are walking around in church right now and you have childish ways. You feel like the leader of that organization is the only person that can tell you when and where to go. Because the goal for you is to speak or preach in that person's church. That's not your assignment. That's their assignment. True. That's their assignment. And so what happens to you is you find yourself in a position where you are waiting for that person to release you into your destiny or into the thing that God called you to release you into. And you find yourself missing out on opportunities that God has placed to you because they're your opportunities and not theirs. You find yourself going and following rules and regulations and following schedules that have nothing to do with the schedule that God has for you. And you wonder why you got ahead and released this. And then you get to be 30 or 40 or 50 years old that all of a sudden you realize maybe I should have done this while I was 20 or maybe I should have done this when I was 30 because that's what we taught. Because church, Christianity, spirituality. Church is the lowest form of spirituality. Christianity is not the highest form. It's that midway, and then there's spirituality. And so when I realized that from that point on, I needed to hear from God, get confirmation from anybody else, but hear from God first. And from that point on, my life took off. It just took off. It meant that every single solitary day God was doing something for me. Something was released in the spirit. So I was constantly making sure that I kept sowing my time. Guys, every morning I'm sowing my time. I don't get paid to do this. There is nobody sponsoring us doing this. I do this this is sowing my time. God opens up all kind of access for me. He opens up all kind of doors for me. Now, do I do classes that charge? Yes, I do classes that charge. Do I write books? Yes, I write books. I do all these different things. I do coaching. I do counseling. I do all those types of things. But I don't do those things with the belief that I have to do those things because I'm waiting for something crazy to happen or wonderful to happen or not happen. I do them because that's my heart. That's what I do. I love doing this. I love doing this. If somebody wrote me a check for $10 million, I would probably sit in the house, study, read, and do classes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because I have bills too. Contrary to the fact that you think I'm a billionaire, I have bills too. I got to pay bills as well. And so when I realized that the number one thing I had to do was first get in contact with God first, then allow my contact to connect to other people. Get in touch with God first. Well, I don't know how to get in touch with God. So you get in touch with people that know how to get in touch with God. But you don't put yourself in a position where getting in touch with God will keep you from reaching where God wants you to reach. Get in touch with God first. Well, Uncle Dallas, I don't know how to do that. Okay, start prayer and meditation. Here's what you need to understand. Here's what you need to understand, what you need to understand. Something was just released into your spirit because you were here. If you're on YouTube, you're watching us and you come back, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, welcome here. If you make sure you share, like, and subscribe to the video. But you are here by destiny. You are here because there's something that I have to say to put into your life, because there are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 people that will watch this video. I will guarantee you. You call me back later, I'll show you the numbers. There will be a gamut of 4,000 people will watch this video. Of the 4,000 people, every one of them was sent here for a specific reason. And their specific reason, if they understand it, the moment they receive it, they now are in a position where the Spirit is going to release something greater to them. See, this is why they say, hey, go to my Cash App, because everybody really knows it. We just don't know how to tell you. So now I'm telling you how to tell you. The mere fact that you spent time here, that you release something in your life. And what you now have to do is go around on the next level and walk in a level of expectation. I expect something to happen. I expect something wonderful to happen. One of the things I teach my mentoring class is you pray three prayers. Prayer number one is, God, send me down the path that best benefits my destination. God, number two, help me be aware of my environment. And God, number three, make sure I live in an overflow. When you understand those three things, today is expectation day. You got something. Go write it down. Go tell somebody about it. You got something. Walk in expectation to receive it. Follow your spirit. Now, some of you guys are going to say, hey, be a blessing. Some of you, he's not going to say nothing to. Absolutely nothing to. You're just going to get it and go on about your business. Why? Because we're not determining this by what you give and what you don't give. But the ones he tells you to give something to, he means he's going to take you to another level, whatever you give. Now, here's the funny thing. He may not say give money. I know. He may say, take this video, give this video to your cousin. Some of you, he's going to say give money. Some of you, he's going to say give it to your cousin. Some of you are going to say start following. Some of you say call him and get instruction. Because you can't limit God to what he wants. You just have to make sure you sow what he tells you to sow. And when I learned that, I stopped limiting myself to my ability of what I had in my pocket or what I had around me. I would sow. If God told me to give away this camera, this is another one of my cameras I use for video. If he told me to give away this camera, I'm going to give away the camera. Why? Because he knows what he's doing more than I know what he's doing. And I know when I sow, God is not mocked. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he reap. Reaping is not about money. It's about expanding your opportunity to receive what God has for you. Now, that's the end of that. So those of you, I appreciate you. We will be here Wednesday at 10 a.m. and Wednesday night at 10 p.m. So I thank you very much for my YouTube family. I will see you guys Wednesday. I'll see you guys Wednesday.